size is always supposed to be important. So do we want a bigger city, a bigger country? Maybe, maybe not. There are arguments for and against. But one writer on this subject says that when we discuss how big we want our community, say the city of Vancouver, to be, strangely, we seem to shyly avoid what he calls the elephant in the room, and that elephant is immigration. We are a nation, after all, of immigrants. But what is our immigration policy really doing for us that works for Canadians and for immigrants? Our guest is Martin Collacott, who is a senior fellow at the Fraser Institute, among other things, and he is probably the most distinguished person we've had on this show, as he was a diplomat with the External Affairs Department, representing Canada in Vietnam, Hong Kong, China, Nigeria, Japan. He is Chinese speaking, and that was very important when he was a member of the Canadian team that negotiated diplomatic relations with the People's Republic back in 1979. He has been High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Ambassador to Syria, Lebanon, and Cambodia. And as I like to kid him, he's just got to come out of his shell and find something important to do with himself. Martin, great to see you. It's really such an honor to have you here. I mean, your contributions to Canada, I trust they've been recognized in some way.
Yeah, I get a pension.
Besides a pension? Are you an OBE or something?
No, well, I'm busy trying to get reform to refugee policy,
Good.
so I'm quite fortunate to do what I want.
Let's do a couple of quick bulletin points or bullet points. You've been studying this issue and living it in a way for most of your working life. What's really good in Canadian policy about immigration, and what's really troublesome?
Well, immigration's done a lot for Canada in its history. I mean, there were times when we needed large-scale immigration to settle the West in the early part of the 20th century. If we hadn't brought in a lot of immigrants, the Americans might have settled it for us. I mean, they wouldn't have marched in, but Americans would have come up and settled it. So it's been very important.
And British Columbia might have been Wyoming too or something.
Yeah. And my parents are immigrants.
Yes.
My wife's an immigrant from Asia.
Yeah.
And, Canada's a more interesting society. Because when I was a kid, it was virtually all white. Now it's a mix, and I think it's a rich society. But there are some problems. We have the highest per capita immigration levels in the world. Well, Australia plays tag with us on that, but we not only bring in about 250,000 immigrants a year, we bring in another 200,000 temporary workers. So we have extremely high levels. And it's having a major impact on a city like Vancouver. We know that we're going to have about 800,000 to 1 million more people in the city in 20 years.
Yes.
Now, is this good or bad? Because it puts a lot of stress on the city in various ways by having all those additional people. And you get all these debates on should we have more densification or should we use the agricultural land reserves and what should we do about it? Behind it all, and as you put it, the elephant in the room, is the fact that it's all driven by external immigration from abroad.
Yes.
And we have some Canadians like myself. I lived in the East before, and I've come and settled here, but almost all the increase is driven by immigration. Now, so is this good? Do we need it? Who are the winners and who are the losers, and why are we doing this?
Exactly. So, Martin, unless I've misread the things you've written about this, I haven't read them all, of course, because you've written so extensively about this matter. The sense that I'm getting from your work is that for a long time, so much of our immigration policy served us and immigrants well, but somewhere down the road, maybe 30 years ago, we started to take an odd turn, and we've created problems for ourselves and for immigrants simultaneously.
Yes.
Let's talk about those.
Well, what
was the turn?
One of several things.
Yeah.
First of all, in the past, we used to increase or decrease immigration levels according to our absorptive capacity.
Yes.
If our economy needed more immigrants, we brought in more. We abandoned that policy. Well, we last had it in the 1980s when we had a recession.
Yes.
And Pierre Trudeau actually lowered. I mean, he looked at the as the godfather of immigration, but he actually decreased the levels to under 100,000 for several years.
I'm smiling because the words Pierre Trudeau were on my lips.
Well, and then when the progressive conservatives came
Yes.
in, they pushed them back up, and for a not very good reason. They said the Liberals seem to get all the immigrant votes. Why don't we
Yes.
have a go at it? And we think if we increase levels, we'll get more immigrants. They pushed them up in the early 90s when there was a recession. And we now know that when immigrants come in during a recession, they have trouble getting jobs.
Yes.
And their earnings go down. And they're actually, it's been found, they're what's called permanently scarred because they aren't able to use their skills